Hello, welcome to the channel. No matter how much you want to, you won't be able to live more than 120 years. Do you want to know the limits of our existence? Stay tuned to find out. The oldest recorded person in history was Jean Calment, who was born on February 21, 1875, in Als, France, and died at the age of 122 years and 164 days. With technology advancing every day and life expectancy increasing as well, you might think that we will live longer, and it wouldn't be surprising if you've heard the claim that the person who will live to be 150 years old has already been born. Well, they didn't deceive you completely, but let's not be so drastic. However, it is unlikely to be true. Some scientists believe that human life expectancy has a rigid limit of around 120 years, while others are a little less optimistic, thinking that we will only reach 115. According to researchers, only a few rare individuals can surpass that limit by a few years. But on average, our species will never do it. This is because while the average lifespan is increasing worldwide, the maximum lifespan is not, at least according to an article published in the journal Nature. This study suggests that Calment's supercentenarian status was an unusual outlier, even in ideal conditions. In their study, researchers analyzed the Human Mortality Database, which contains centuries of population and mortality data from 38 countries. They found that while the percentage of people living up to 70 years has increased significantly since the 1900s due to improved childhood survival and better healthcare, the same cannot be said for people living over 100 years. There have been some advances in longevity after the age of 100, but they are much more modest, and then those numbers start to decline, approaching the number 110. As I mentioned earlier, the idea that we won't continue increasing our lifespan seems to go against all logic. For centuries, our average life expectancy has been increasing, and at the same time, our maximum life expectancy has also. Although the claims of extreme ages by some individuals can be difficult to verify, reliable figures from Sweden showed that the oldest individuals reached only 101 years in the 1860s, but 108 years in the 1990s. When Calment died at the age of 122 in 1997, a long time, 1 year after the end of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, everyone was saying that it would only be a matter of time before we had someone who reached 125 or 130 years. But the fact is that after Calment, there was no one else who broke the record. The maximum age reached by humans has been 115. According to a recent analysis by the United Nations, there are currently around 573,000 centenarians on the planet, and that number will increase to 3.7 million by 2050 if we don't all die before then, of course. The country with the highest absolute number of centenarians is currently the United States, while Japan has the highest per capita number. Japan is also home to the oldest living person in the world right now, Kaneda. This woman was born in February 1903 and is currently 118 years old. Comparing to the size of the population, the countries following Japan with the highest rates of centenarians are Spain, the Czech Republic, France, Canada, and Italy. The Aging Analysis Agency. Yes, this agency exists, as you can see. It is preparing a report on supercentenarians. The research will formulate and answer some important questions about how long humans can live, as well as provide a closer look at the living supercentenarians today, with first-hand accounts of how they live their lives. An advance of the report has been showing some interesting things so far. For example, it says that there are many more female supercentenarians alive in the world than males. Going back to the initial study, the data led scientists to conclude that between the 1970s and early 1990s, our maximum age increased to around 110 to 115 years and then plateaued. After 1995, just before the death of Jean Calment, the team of researchers calculated that in any given year, the odds of at least one person in the world living beyond their 125th birthday are less than 1 in 10,000. Despite improvements in sanitation, better food intake, and a better understanding of what we should and shouldn't eat, as well as antibiotics, vaccines, and many other medical advancements that allow us to live longer, it seems that we cannot surpass that limit. But the question that you've probably been asking yourself for a while, and also the title of this video, is why? The reason seems to be tied to our biology, to how humans, as beings, are conditioned by certain limits as we age. Gradually, we accumulate damage in our DNA and other molecules, which causes the beautiful organization of our cells that we have in our younger years to become chaotic and dysfunctional as we grow older. In most cases, this chaos leads to age-related diseases such as cancer, heart disease, and Alzheimer's. But as you may have noticed, this is not the fate of all elderly individuals. You may have noticed that people who are over 80 or 90 years old do not have these types of diseases. In fact, studies show that once they surpass this age of risk, their chances of contracting such critical diseases begin to decrease. The exact reason for this is not well known. One hypothesis is that maybe it's because we have protective genes that, by the way, need further study. Do you have any supercentenarians in your family? I bet they didn't die from any major illness, but from natural causes. And I also bet that some of them are physically independent even until the end of their lives, but die of natural old age simply because many of their bodily functions fail. It's their biology, well, our biology. Our biology makes us die. We're not the only animals that can die of old age. The vast majority of animals do. The only animal species to date that is considered biologically immortal is the Turritopsis dohrnii jellyfish, which constantly regenerates itself. Evolution has made it so that the majority of animals have this fatal biological destiny. We have to die. Why? Well, imagine you have an animal that doesn't age, not the jellyfish, let's call it an imaginary animal. Let's call it Paco. Even though Paco cannot age, meaning it's biologically immortal, Paco can still die of hunger, fall into an abyss, get hit by a piano, or be eaten by someone. It is not indestructible. This imaginary creature should have a demographic very similar to ours. Its species should have many young individuals and fewer elderly ones because, by probability, if you have more life, more things can happen to cause your death. Evolution in this case should favor genetic changes that offer advantages during early life, such as growth or reproduction. It is the same evolution that will disregard the genetic changes that cause harm during old age when so few individuals reach those ages. That is why organisms age. Evolution naturally prioritizes the young over the old. As I mentioned earlier, there have been enormous advances in keeping older people alive for much longer. We continue to make progress in healthcare safety standards, and there are more people on the planet than ever before. But despite all the advancements, scientists cannot explain the fact that there are no more older individuals than Jeanne Calment. The only inference they can make so far is that it happens because we have reached a limit. We have reached our limit. But that doesn't mean we can't cheat death. It is possible to deceive senescence to achieve biological immortality. It is believed that telomeres, which are caps at the end of DNA, are the cause of cellular aging. Master the telomeres, and we will have the secret of eternal life. The problem is that to achieve this, we have to modify many genes. So many that scientists think it will not be possible to do it in our generation, or even in the generation of our grandchildren. That's what is projected. But it can happen sooner. Well, what do you want? To live a long time? To live a short time? To be immortal? Think about it carefully. First, buy a better house and secure your future. Without money, why would you want to live so long? Now, if you're immortal, think about it carefully. Imagine you're fixing your spaceship in space, and a malfunction sends you drifting away into infinity. Would you like to live like that? Lost in space? Lost in infinity? Or what if someone makes a mistake and buries you alive? Or worse? I think there is nothing worse. That's it for the video. Give it a like and subscribe.